Yes, sorry, I didn't give you a chance to stretch your legs. You've been sitting for... Okay, so this is my friend Ron Wicks. Ron and I worked together when he was a consultant for the biotech company I worked for a couple of years. And I don't remember when you told me the story about your business, but it totally captured my imagination. And the first two speakers we had are guys who started businesses kind of, from nothing, built brand new businesses. Ron took a different path, and it's a path that I think might actually be the most feasible, realistic path for most of the people in the room today. If you're thinking about these kinds of things, Ron bought a business, and so I want to talk about that. I'm sure you've got other stuff you want to talk about, but let's start with let's go way back before that. What was your upbringing and kind of your plan in terms of career? How were you thinking about all that when you were growing up?
Hi, glad to be here. We were raised here in Huntsville. My brother and I, we still have parents here in Huntsville. I spent a lot of time being raised at my grandfather's farm, up in Hazel Green. And that's where I was free slave labor,
yes.
My brother and I. And but it was great. It was a lot of hard physical work, but we also sat under the tree and visited and cut up and had fun. And so, it was, all in all, it was a wonderful experience. My father worked out at the Arsenal. He was an engineer. And so I think he kind of wanted me to be an engineer, but I quickly figured out that stuff is way over my head. I couldn't do that. So anyway, went to school and got into a business curriculum. So, graduated college with a business degree. Didn't really know at that point in time. I was not really thinking about owning a business, honestly.
Sure.
And I just did the normal expected thing. Just went and got a job. I went ahead and got an MBA degree, kind of thinking that's the thing you do. You get educated, that's the thing you do, and you go get a job. And it was great. Had a good career in the IT world. Ended up doing that for many, many years. It's kind of felt like it was being connected to a fire hose every single day. But that's really was the journey up until the real big moments where I discovered a huge passion to get into business for myself. Okay,
so how long, up until that point, how long have you been in kind of the corporate world? And what were you doing mostly?
I had been in the corporate world for at least... I was in my early 30s, I guess. So I had, ever since college. So my first job was supporting PCs, computers, And so, but what I really did is communicated with the users and figured out what they needed. So that was, it was more of a people thing. And then I... got promoted along the way, got into consulting, and then actually was got recruited to help run a IT company here in Huntsville. So I was doing all that stuff for up until my early 30s, I guess, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So what drove you to that point where you were like, I think I want to do my own thing?
So that's an interesting, to me, it's an interesting thing, I think. It really had a lot to do with the front yard. I was, like I said, I was in corporate world, had a great job, family, wife, young daughter, still have the same family, wife, older daughter now. And where that moment really became crystal clear, I had great neighbors. One in particular, instead of doing yard work, we would sit outside and we would visit.
Right.
And I just loved it. It was a lot of fun visiting with this guy. He owned a business.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I really admire that, you know?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he ended up getting a cancer. And as I was spending time with him and he was declining, I tell you, Larson, there was just this moment where I just got this overwhelming sense that before I leave this earth, I want to try my hand at owning a business. It had to be a God thing because it wasn't planted in me from my upbringing or my college or my family or my wife or any of that thing.
Yeah.
It just had to have been a God thing.
So you had this kind of epiphany, and you didn't go out and start something, or did you? Did you try to start something?
No, I'm not smart enough. No, no.
So how did you get the idea that maybe buying a business was a viable option? I don't think most of us would think of that.
I mean, it was very clear to me I was not smart enough to start what these guys did. This just wasn't me. And so I somehow or another, and again, I think it was a God thing. It was just, I discovered that there are basically business brokers out there. They're kind of like real estate agents. They're representing businesses that are for sale. There's a ton of businesses for sale out there. They don't put a for sale sign up because they don't want their customers to know that they're leaving or going out of business. So it's kind of a behind the scenes thing. So I somehow discovered that, and so I started meeting with them, and I just kind of laid out, some basic criteria. Like, I'd been in technology for all those years. I did not want to do technology. I wanted to do something with people. I wanted to do something that had real products, and it had to be within about driving distance of Madison, Alabama. So we weren't really interested in leaving Madison. And so brokers showed me, several different businesses. So the interesting thing is it couldn't be a small, tiny business because I had a wife and a young child and a lifestyle. I hate to say it, but a lifestyle. It's like, it couldn't be a tiny little business. On the other hand, it couldn't be this huge business that I couldn't figure out some way to finance.
Right.
And so I had to, strive for something fairly good size, which is a whole nother story about how to finance that. But
yeah. Well, so just to stop there, I think whenever I think about buying a business, I think about venture capital and private equity and these big sort of news headline acquisitions that are, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. You're saying there are businesses for sale that aren't big enough to attract the attention of banks and private equity or venture capital, but are actually profitable enough to support a family. And that's kind of the revelation you had.
Yeah, that's true. So in my case, the business was owned by a older family who had ran it for years and years and years and was just ready to retire. It generated enough revenue where what I did is I went to the bank and we somehow, and to this day, I'm still kind of wondering how all this really came to pass. But in any event, met with the banker. We went through the financials of the existing business, and the banker figured out a way where I could mortgage my house.
Okay.
And take out a loan from the bank.
Okay.
And that's what financed buying the company.
Okay.
And
Did the owners do any owner financing?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Now there are a lot of those opportunities out there, and so the numbers just work to where even with all of that, there was enough cash flow to pay all that stuff back.
Yeah.
And we did pay it back really, really fast because the Lord blessed us and we grew, and so we were able to pay it back really fast. But yeah, that's how we did it.
So you were totally agnostic to the industry. You just said no technology. It's got to be driving distance. and it's got to be generating enough profit for me to live on.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So I really wanted it to be non-technical.
Yeah.
'Cause, and I really had this notion in my mind that I wanted it to be something that our daughter could come into the business and just hang out.
Yeah.
And she could understand it. I mean, she would come into my office when I was in the IT world, and it just probably looked like a mountain full of paperwork,
Yeah.
and she could sit at my conference room table and she could do whatever. But, I really wanted something where even our daughter, Hillary, could really kind of feel like she could do something.
Yeah.
And I just had this aspiration that I was hoping to find something like that. And so.
So what did you find? What was it?
Yeah, so it was probably, I had never paid any attention to any of this. I didn't actually even know it existed. I guess intellectually I kind of knew it existed, but I didn't know anything about it. So anyway, it ended up being a store down in Birmingham, and the owners had built this up, and it was a store that sold uniforms. So here I was coming from, this big high-tech world and looking at this, buying this company where they sold uniforms, like medical scrubs and restaurant wear and all that kind of stuff. But the more I got into it, you talk about, somebody said, hey, how do you really know what you're going to like? Oh, I didn't know I was going to love this stuff. I mean, I ended up loving this, right?
Yeah.
But if you had said to me 2 years earlier, hey, would you love to do this? I don't know that it would have been on my radar screen, right?
Yeah.
So I got in there and became fascinated with it. It was a people-oriented business. It was real products. And so I actually did stuff like I would sit across the street in my truck and I would count the number of people that go in and count the number of people that come out with a sack. Was it a little sack? Was it a big sack? Were they not buying stuff? Were they buying a lot of stuff? That kind of thing. And so just the more I got into it, the more I'm like, okay, I can understand this.
Yeah.
It's not technical. My daughter can come in here and play around. This would be great. And the numbers, we ended up figuring out a way to make the numbers work. So that's the one I picked.
So this is a uniform company down in Birmingham, and you. So I loved what you said about you didn't know you were going to be passionate about it. I think I've heard Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs say, don't follow your passion or do what you're passionate about. Bring your passion to whatever it is you're doing. And so it sounds like you kind of had that sort of approach. So so tell us what happened. So did you just ride off into the sunset and run are you still running this business, or what ended up happening?
So the beauty about buying a business is that on day one when you close, the customers are still rolling in. I mean, they're coming in. They don't know any different. Everything's great, Yeah. And so so the first thing, was don't upset the apple cart, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And this was kind of a fixer-upper situation. Is kind of the way I describe it sometimes.
Yeah.
So spent about a year working really hard, and I would say making small incremental improvements, reorganizing things, just basic things like that,
Right.
and really building relationships with customers.
Yeah.
So in the uniform business, started really figuring out that, hey, there's bigger business in the like the doctor's offices and the medical clinics and all that kind of stuff. And down in Birmingham, healthcare is a bigger industry, and so just started building relationships with doctors' offices and medical clinics, and started getting to know, okay, how do we sell to these groups, which is different from selling to people who walk in, to the store.
Did you have a sales background?
Not really.
Okay.
No, I didn't have a retail background.
Okay.
So, so I am also proof that you don't have to know all this stuff ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so spending time getting to know those customers at the at the small offices, the clinics and all of that gave me the confidence to then kind of start building relationships with large hospitals.
Okay.
So it was UAB, you know, all the ones down there. And so that was really what made the huge difference. And it was amazing to me, and I tell people this story because it was an amazing learning, you know, situation for me. So, you know, doing the typical thing, I would set up these meetings with the large hospitals and go in and ask them, you know, what they like and what they don't like about their uniform program. And so generally speaking, what they would say is something like, yeah, we want the uniforms, but what we don't like about it is, say, for example, in the cardiology department, we want cardiology department to be all red. But we end up with this hodgepodge of 15 different shades of red. So it's like, well, if you'll send the entire cardiology department to us, we will make sure that everybody is perfectly matched in red. So that was kind of the first little home run, if you will.
Yeah.
So they started sending them then, you know, to us. But the really big one that made the big, huge breakthrough for us, and this is why, you know, I spend a lot of time telling people that you don't have to have all of this engineered. It's going to come to you, and I think that's God's hand. He does. I didn't have this on a business plan at all, and so, but I enjoy people, and so I was walking around the hospital one day and started visiting with the volunteers at the front desk. And we were just chatting and talking, and off on the corner of my eye, I see that, there's this little section of books or jewelry, and to this day, I can't really remember what it was. And I asked them about it, and they said, oh, yeah, we'll let people sell their stuff here as long as they don't make a donation to the volunteer group. Huh. And I'm like, okay, so will you let me sell our uniforms here? And they're like, oh, yeah, if you make a donation. And I'm like, sure. So all of a sudden, cha-ching. It was like, cha-ching. Yeah. It was like, okay, now I know exactly what color every single department at UAB wants. And so I could order that inventory, and we could come on site with a lot of inventory because the risk was down low, and we could sell like crazy. So what we ended up doing is that just morphed into being able to serve about, I don't know, it was about 50 large hospitals across the South, all the way over to Duke Medical Center, and all of these ones, we did the same thing. We'd find out, and they were all different. You know, what Duke wanted and Vanderbilt wanted and everything else was different, but we knew the game. Yeah. You know, and so we would load up trucks, and we would go and set up 3 or 4 wireless checkouts and have a room, you know, as big as this or bigger, and sell like crazy.
It's amazing. I think there's a couple of really wonderful things about that I think are worth kind of diving into. One is knowing your customers. You know, just doing the diligence to spend time. You know, with Jason's business, he is a builder, and so he knows their frame of reference and what they're looking for and how they think about these architectural things inside and out. And you're coming from a completely different background. So you just going and sitting down with your customers, the businesses that are buying your products, was transformative. You learned the language, you learned their problems, you learned how to speak their language. The other thing I love that you said was that you don't have to have this on the business plan. This is something I talk about at our business all the time. I know that we're going to have a huge breakthrough at some point. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to survive. I'm going to do good business, be profitable until that day comes. And the way that a lot of startups operate these days is you go in with a business plan, you raise insane amounts of money, and you just throw everything into that plan. You just try to grow, and hopefully fool somebody into paying for it and buying it from you while you're going up. But you know, because of that, such a high percentage fails. Where Nassim Taleb, you know, Anti-Fragile, all that stuff, he just talks a lot about just survival, like just survive. be there. You know, everyone else is going to come and go, but you're still there. The third thing, and someday the opportunity is going to come, right? That someday you're going to be in the right place with the right product and the ability to deliver. And the third thing I wanted to mention, which keeps coming in and out of my brain, and I think I've lost it now. I was going to say that I think what Jason and Caleb did is the absolute most brutal part of business. It's the going from zero to profitable bit. That part is the bit that I think is glamorized and is also most of us are terrified of for good reason. It's brutal. You've got to be kind of wired a certain way to be able to handle that kind of thing. But the cool thing about what you did was I think what happens to a lot of people that are selling a business is they've been through that brutal effort and they get to a point to where they're making money and it's like, I just want to chill. I just want to stay here and like I'm finally taking a paycheck. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to grow. I don't want to innovate. I just want to chill, which is understandable when you've done all that work. You had the benefit of being an entrepreneur in an already profitable business. So you're coming in with fresh energy, fresh eyes, and you're wanting to make your mark on the business. And that's why you were able to really kick it up a notch and discover what you did. Any responses to any of those comments?
I think that's true. Looking back on it, I tell people it was a fixer-upper business, and what I mean by that is that the physical part of the business, the store, all that stuff, was the fixer-upper part. The lack of a decent computer system was a fixer-upper part.
Right.
But it had good customers. And you could it's just not rocket science that the healthcare industry was going to continue to want that kind of product,
Yeah.
So it kind of made sense. The hardest thing for me really was my wife was awesome. She was like super supportive.
Yeah.
Do it. Let's do it. Even though we're mortgaging our house and everything else,
Yeah.
But my parents were not so keen on the idea. Because it's just I think it was just, coming from a different perspective of working somewhere for your entire career.
Sure.
And I had a good job, had all these responsibilities, and it just seemed almost crazy to make that jump.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So I want to end the story and kind of tell people, let you tell us where this went. So you told us that bought this little thing, local uniform business, started talking to customers, discovered some problems you could solve. That kind of blew up. You're serving 50 major hospitals around the Southwest. You've got trucks. You're doing these stores, these pop-up stores at all these places. What happened next? Where did you go from there?
So things were great, good, better than I ever imagined, really.
Yeah.
We were taking care of employees. We were buying them furniture. We were taking care of them. So that was great. And for a while, there was just this conversation from a company and from some folks that wanted to buy the business. So didn't really want to do it at first. And then there was just this other moment where I just felt like it was the right thing to do, to be able to free up and be able to spend a lot more time with our family, our daughter,
Sure.
and just gain that flexibility.
Sure.
So if I ended up selling, it created an enormous amount of flexibility in life.
Sure.
And so ended up deciding to, and it did. So it created this situation where, so I did that business for about 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
sold, and then it created this flexibility to do part-time work and spend a bunch of time with family, and that was really a huge blessing.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That's awesome.
It's the best thing we ever did.
That's very cool. So do you is this the kind of thing that that you like I guess the question is what do you want to do next? Like what's you've kind of did that thing and exited. Are you hoping to continue to consult, or what? Like what's life look like today for you?
So it's a great question. Again, 2 years ago, I probably never would have been able to see this, God has opened up for me right now. So I think all of this is just this huge journey.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping the journey's not ending. I don't want to retire. That's not on my radar screen.
That's awesome.
And I'm already starting to see. So one of the huge benefits. Can I step back? One of the huge benefits of owning the business was being able to have my daughter jump in the truck. We would ride from Madison to Birmingham and spend time together. She would come in the store. It was stuff she could deal with, right? I mean, she knew red and yellow. I mean, she could do that. The employees obviously treated her well. We could go eat lunch. We just had a great time with that. So that time was worth a ton. But now, if you said 2 years ago, what would things be going on? I was really only doing a little bit of consulting work, but I got this calling through being involved in a small church plant to somehow get involved in some sort of ministry. But obviously, I'm not a speaker. I don't want to be a pastor or anything like that. But I felt like I really wanted to figure out some way to, serve. Yeah. And so I had the opportunity to discover a 2-year ministry leadership college program. So I spent 2 years going through that, recently graduated that, and oh man, that's been life-changing. All kinds of opportunities have opened up, and now I'm super excited. Can I talk about what I'm doing now?
Yeah, please.
All right, so now I really want to continue to, in this vein, but I want to help other people go on this journey, right? Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people who can go on this journey. This is not, just for certain people. There's a lot of people that could do, what Jason, Caleb, there's a lot of people that can do what I did, is an awful lot. And I don't want people to, be afraid of it, live, with faith over fear, and so, but provide some training and education, right? Yeah. And so what we've put together is a program to actually teach people how to start up and run a business. So it's a 8-week program. It's a nonprofit. There's no cost to it. I've got a great group of Christian business owners and leaders. But it's not just the education. It's the weekly biblical mentoring along the way that we really focus on. And the real goal there is that if you do go through it and you launch your business and you start hiring employees, we're really building in this notion of business as ministry. So, the statistic we were talking earlier, the statistics about employees are alarming. So 70-80% of the employees are coming to work with a very big struggle. Yeah. Right? So there's a mission field right there. Yeah. It's great to support all kinds of missions, but that's a mission field right there. And so we're really focused on not only helping them learn how to start a business, and we haven't even advertised, and we've already got 4 or 5 guys enrolled. That's awesome. Everything, it's all over the board, including a guy that's starting up a nonprofit. So I'm super excited about that, just because I think a little bit of my experience can apply and I can encourage. And then we've got these other guys that have even different kinds of experiences. So all together, it stitches together to, be a great group of Christian business people who want to see other people explore the idea of starting a business.
Yeah.
And that is a platform to connect and reach people for the kingdom.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ron, this has been great. Thank you, man, for taking time to be a part of this. Thank you.